I'm going to be doing a book talk for you guys for this week. So, book talk that I am going to be doing for this week is not really on a certain book, it's on a particular short story. And I'm going to be doing a book talk on a Sherlock Holmes story. Sherlock Holmes is one of my favorite detective characters. He's super smart, he's British, he lives back in the day, and he can figure out any mystery. And so I have this big old book of a whole bunch of different Sherlock Holmes stories. But I'm going to be doing a book talk, or I should call this a story talk, I guess, on a particular Sherlock Holmes mystery called The Adventure of the Speckled Band. And I also found access to this particular mystery online. So even if you don't have a copy of Sherlock Holmes stories, you can find this online and you can read it online. You can even download it. It tells you how many pages it is, so you can write it on your reading calendar. The Mystery of the Speckled Band is one of my favorites because it's a pretty crazy story, and also I don't think that you would predict what the ending is going to be. It takes place in England, and Sherlock Holmes and his trusty assistant Watson are at home on Baker Street, which is where Sherlock Holmes lives, and this woman comes to their house and says, I have a problem, and there's a mystery, and I was wondering if you could help me. So to give you a little bit of background on that, she starts telling Sherlock Holmes the story of her life, and it ends up that her parents were living in India when she was born, even though they were from England, and they were born there. And then her father died, so her mother remarried this doctor who she met in India. And eventually they ended up moving back to England, and everything was fine for a while. But after a while, it seemed like her stepfather just started to really kind of go off the deep end. He was making really bad decisions, and he was becoming violent. He was starting to fight with people, and so they were getting pretty afraid of him. And also, side note is that he had this obsession with exotic animals, and he had acquired some interesting pets from India that he brought back with him, and he kept having these animals shipped back to England. So I'm thinking, crazy guy, exotic pets. This is sounding a lot like Tiger King, and it is kind of Tiger King level crazy. So this woman who is talking to Sherlock Holmes says that one night things got even crazier at their house, though, because she was in her bedroom, and then all of a sudden her sister started coming down the hall, and it sounded like her sister was in trouble. That's where I'm going to start reading to you. I could not sleep that night. A vague feeling of impending misfortune impressed me. My sister and I, you will recollect, were twins, and you know how subtle are the links which bind two souls which are so closely allied. It was a wild night. The wind was howling outside, and the rain was beating and splashing against the windows. Suddenly, amidst all the hubbub of the gale, there burst forth the wild scream of a terrified woman. I knew that it was my sister's voice. I sprang from my bed, wrapped a shawl round me, and rushed into the corridor. As I opened my door, I seemed to hear a low whistle, such as my sister described, and a few moments later, a clanging sound as if a mass of metal had fallen. As I ran down the passage, my sister's door was unlocked and revolved slowly upon its hinges. I stared at it horror-stricken, not knowing what was about to issue from it. By the light of the corridor lamp, I saw my sister appear at the opening, her face blanched with terror, her hands groping for help, her whole figure swayed to and fro like that of a drunkard. I ran to her and threw my arms round her, but at that moment her knees seemed to give way and she fell to the ground. She writhed as one who is in terrible pain, and her limbs were dreadfully convulsed. At first, I thought she had not recognized me, but as I bent over her, she suddenly shrieked out in a voice which I shall never forget. "Oh my God, Helen! It was the band! The Speckled Band!" there was something else which she would fain have said, and she stabbed her finger into the air in the direction of the doctor's room. But a fresh convulsion seized her and choked her words. I rushed out, calling loudly for my stepfather, and I met him hastening from his room in his dressing gown. When he reached my sister's side, she was unconscious, and though he poured brandy down her throat and sent for medical aid from the village, all efforts were in vain, for she slowly sank and died without having recovered her consciousness. Such was the dreadful end of my beloved sister. So, if you would like to find out what on earth is the band, the Speckled Band, and how and why her sister died, then you should read this story. Also, there was a TV series that was made of Sherlock Holmes stories a couple years ago, starring Benedict Cumberbatch as the man Sherlock Holmes. So if you read some of his stories and you like them, then I would recommend that you check out that TV series as well, because it's very good also. Alrighty, so whatever you're reading this week, I hope that you guys have a great week. See ya.